Well, welcome to The Growth Game by Paul DeLuca. I'm CEO of Meritus Capital. We have another excellent podcast today to be able to run through staffing entrepreneurs and investors and talk about growth. We're honored to have Max Shapiro with us today. Max, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you coming in for The Growth Game.
My pleasure, Paul. Looking forward to it.
Excellent, Max. Well, sounds good. I always like to start these with a brief little background on myself for you to kind of get into our free-flowing conversation, and then maybe a quick little background on you, and just take a couple minutes on each, and then we'll jump into some questions I have and kind of talk about little tidbits of things and learnings that our audience can get inspired about this week. So that's what we're here to do, Max. So Max, I think we've met over the course of the years. Your name seems super familiar. I just don't remember exactly when we worked together. We're in the Bay Area for I don't know how many years, but thank you very much for coming in. Just as a reminder, I've been financing staffing companies since the late 90s, and I've financed about 800 staffing companies or so. I love what I do. I really enjoy working with entrepreneurs, helping them thrive, create enterprise value for themselves, some wealth for them, their families, and it gets me excited to wake up every day and work with entrepreneurs. So we're going to really kind of focus on, what it takes to be able to long-term create value, continue to be focused on growth. And we really love the fact that you've done a lot of interesting things in your career, looking for the insights that we have. But Max, maybe you could give us a little bit of background. How did you get into doing what you do? I know you have some staffing business, but you're also an investor. Love to hear your background.
Sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I did many different things, none of it related in any way to high-tech recruiting for startups, which is what we do. I scouted in the NBA. I'm the youngest chief scout in the history of the NBA. In 1967, I was the chief scout for the San Diego Rockets. Did such a great job scouting. The team had to leave town and move to Houston. They're now known as Houston.
Fun. Very cool.
And then I was in the sports camp business. I created and ran basketball camps with John Wooden when he was coaching at UCLA and after he retired, and Magic Johnson and Pat Riley and a number of others. Put on baseball fantasy camps where we were partnering with major league teams and recreating the spring training experience in Arizona and Florida. And then for a while, from 92 to 99, I started and ran a business called American Recycle, where we were buying and selling 10,000 pair of Levi's up to 20,000 pair of Levi's a month. Actually created a denim auction, the first denim auction ever in Tokyo, where we a pair of 75-year-old jeans that had never been worn, Levi's, bought for $10,500 and sold them at that auction for $21,000. Double my money.
That's exciting.
It was fun, crazy. And then a friend of mine said, recruiting. So in late '99, I started PeopleConnect. We're now in our 25th year, and we do things differently. We don't do any staffing. We do all perm placement. What we do different is we place people in any position at any level for any type of startup anywhere in the U.S. As we all know, most people just focus in one area. We staff for IT positions, or we do perm placements for CFOs only or accountants, but we do it all. And I'll give you a real quick example. About 3 years ago, a friend of mine here in Marin County was helping a cannabis company in Boulder close its A round. In order to do that, they needed a COO, a VP of sales, and an accountant. So we're talking C-suite, VP, individual contributor. We had never done any recruiting at all in the cannabis space. We filled all three positions. So That gives you an idea. And we could fill a chief sales officer or an SDR dialing for dollars. So up and down the ladders, not just C-suite. It could be VP, individual contributor, manager, director. And like you, I love what I'm doing. I work about 60 hours a week. I'm 80 years old, and hopefully in April I'll turn 81, and it's fun. It's fun, hearing ideas from great new startups, helping them get funding with our pitch events, and then helping them build a great team.
That sounds excellent. Wow, that's amazing. I love the fact that we're talking to you with all your valuable experience. I would have never guessed that you're 80 and still at it with this kind of excitement in your conversation. That's really neat. I really appreciate that. Well, fantastic. It is. It's enjoyable to be able to mentor and pass things down. Right? It's why I continue to do what I do. It's very enjoyable. But You've really proven that. That's amazing, Max. You're known as a connector. And I love the fact that the things you've done in your entrepreneurial career is connecting all the dots to be able to make these successful businesses. But when you really started PeopleConnect, kind of how did you adapt that learning, that quality that you have of being able to be at the nexus of the right place, the right time, and putting people together, which is a very enjoyable thing. How did you really transcribe that talent into the staffing business, into your permanent placement business?
Yeah, I think, it's an old sports cliche that I love. Is luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So it was really in the right place, the right time. I wish I'd gotten in a couple of years earlier because and the '99 was just, the dot-com bust was just beginning. And a friend of mine taught me the recruiting business, and she said she was a solopreneur, and she said, don't spend too much time on the computer on this thing, the internet, and you need to be on the phone all the time calling. So, she was fading out. There was the end of her career, and we had a year and a half or so right in the beginning before the dot-com bust, and it was fake it until you make it. Just learning what I needed to learn about the business, and then once the bust hit, it was really hard for people in the permanent placement business to stay alive. But I've been an angel investor since 2001. I'm part of a group called the Keiretsu Forum, and companies were coming then. They were almost all software companies, Paul, and they were saying, we need $1 million to either hire salespeople because our software is done or our software isn't done, and we need some more developers. And we said, if you had those people on board, we'd be more likely to invest because people were reluctant to invest then. And they said, hello? Why do you think we're here? How are we going to hire people without money? And luckily, a light bulb went off for me, and I said, there's a whole bunch of people that are home, depressed, not working, can't find a job, tired of being an extension of their wife's honey-do list, and maybe some of them would work for equity only for 3 months or 6 months until a company had enough money, had raised enough money, and put them on the payroll. But in the interim, they were getting equity, and we called that employees without paychecks. And it was a small part of our business, about 10% of our business, up until COVID hit. And once COVID hit, we can't get people to work for options anymore. Everybody wants cash, and that's okay.
Right.
That's fine. So that's gone by the wayside. I mean, we get people call us and, hey, I'm a PhD of bioengineering at Northwestern. I've got this great idea, but I know I need a CEO who's taken a business from nowhere, a startup, and built it into a big, thriving enterprise. And can you get me somebody? Can you get me somebody to work for equity only? And I said, no, we can't. But if you could pay $10,000 a month for the first year, then we can get you somebody. And that somebody knows they've got to raise the money in order for their salary to go up to market level. So that's what what we're seeing in terms of nobody being willing to work without a paycheck now.
That's an intriguing model, though. I really like that. So you really are doing much more than just finding good candidates and staffing them. You really are a nexus point for also giving them advice, it appears, on how to raise capital and potentially invest yourself or find other investors in your angel group. That's absolutely intriguing. I think that's an interesting point you've made, that employees, even very experienced C-suite employees, want to be de-risked now. There's so many great opportunities. And of course, the challenge in the capital markets is so difficult right now in raising capital for early stage companies. But still, I mean, that's a very low threshold to be able to get a senior talent at $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year. They want a little de-risk, they want some cash, but wow, that can really make an entrepreneur with a good idea, something that's many multi-million-dollar enterprise value, I would think.
Yeah, the other thing we're doing, Paul, for early stage startups is helping them get funding. So 11 years ago, I came up with this idea of running pitch events where companies looking for their seed round or their pre-seed round or looking for a bridge to their A could come and pitch to investors. In the first 7 years, we were doing that, alternating between San Francisco and Silicon Valley with live events. And now we've just started our 4th year of doing them online. So once COVID hit, we've gone online, and it's been great because we now have companies from all over the country. And of the 6 companies every week, one might be from offshore somewhere. They could be in Argentina, they could be in Israel, they could be in Italy, Ukraine. We've had people pitch from the Ukraine during the war, actually. And so that gives them an opportunity to get funding. And, we say, your challenge today is fundraising. We can help you with that. But once you've raise the money, you've got another challenge, and that's building a great team, and that's
Right.
where we come. And we our pitch events, we call them pitch force. We just charge a $250 admin fee, so we're just trying to break even there. But it's obviously a great lead gen vehicle for our recruiting business.
That's a absolutely intriguing model. I really, really am intrigued by that. Boy, you're going to have to invite me. Maybe I can make some co-investment angel decisions with you. Beers, you've made some excellent, excellent decisions. I love it. Well, talk to me a little bit about your investments. You're obviously a serial entrepreneur, and you've been at the investing game for many, many years, and so you're constantly looking at growth and investing. How do you create your own best practices? I'd love to hear kind of how are you a good steward of whether it's your own capital or potentially others that look to you as a lead. How do you become a good steward of your capital when you're making decisions to invest in companies?
Well, I think, and I just gave a talk to a group of 50 Italian startup entrepreneurs yesterday in San Francisco. And we talked about questions that investors want answered before they're going to invest in your company. So first and foremost, I want to bet on the jockey, and not just because I'm in the people business, but you want to invest in people who have hopefully had other exits and had success in startups. But if not, if it's somebody who's a first-time startup founder, CEO, then let's look at what they've done in the past to be able to get to this point where they have enough confidence and enough money to put some of their own money in the deal. So that's number one. First and foremost is people. Secondly, you need to be able, as a startup founder, and for me to be interested, you need to be able to tell a great story. If you're talking about like this at this level with no enthusiasm, just boring the hell out of people.
You're going to put your investors to sleep and your customers to sleep.
and your employees, if you can't get them.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people that are low key, I say, just imagine that you're coaching your son or daughter in a little league game or soccer game. You're trying to get the team fired up. And so that's important. I want them to know their numbers. I want them to know all about their CAC and their LTV and their MRR and ARR, all those acronyms that are important in the startup world. So I want them really to be familiar with that. And I want them to have a long range vision. I don't want to invest in somebody that's trying to get out in a year and a half. It's going to take a longer time to create the value that I'm going to need so that my exit is, is a meaningful one.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like the private equity investors are so focused on 3 to 5 years, and, it's become almost a cliche, and many have tried to move away from that. But the reality is it's just difficult to create real value in that period of time, right? Like, so what do you really look for in a horizon, in an investment horizon? Certainly you have multiple things that you're involved in, right? Because you've got your financial incentive to, recruit and place the right people and create the right team. But of course you want to see them successful. But, especially in here and today with the current, macroeconomics and the different cycles we've been through, when you talk to an investor and you would say mentor them, what would you say would be a reasonable horizon to prepare themselves for a whole lot of work to create value and get to a place they could see a little bit of reasonable liquidity?
It's what you said before. It's 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I want to see a 5-year projection that shows me that a company has a possibility of having, an income of 120 million with 43% in EBITDA dropping to the bottom line if it's a software company. That's important. They've got to be playing in a big market. If they can capture 10% of the market in 5 years, they're going to be doing $8 million. That's a really, really nice lifestyle business, but it's not a business that people are going to invest in.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you've spent a career in understanding how to find the right talent, put them in the right place. Let me ask you this. It's interesting you've never really transitioned into the temporary staffing market, but let me just give you a little bit of an idea of what I see, and I'd love to have your advice, and I'm certain that my audience would appreciate this. So, Max, most of the companies that we finance are temporary staffing companies or have a temporary staffing sector of their business. Now, what I found is super interesting. I have been able to work with many permanent placement companies over the years, recruiters that really have created, a good business. It's gone okay for them. They've grown, but they kind of get to a glass ceiling. They're like, how do I break through? And they have a difficult time finding something unique. I've really always advised them, almost invariably, that to create some enterprise value near term to add a temporary staffing side of their business, because there's a lot of consistency in that revenue. So I'm curious, like, is that good advice from your point of view, number one? And really, what has kept you out of the temporary staffing market? But love some advice for my audience on the temporary staffing side from your point of view.
That's great advice. I wish we had done it. We're now in our 25th year, and I don't see us doing that now. But it's interesting, the lament of the staffing industry versus perm placement. Perm says, hey, you're in a staffing business and you wake up every morning and you have 67 people out and you're making $24 an hour. It's easy to do the math. You know how much money you're making that day without even getting out of bed. And the staffing guys say, you guys have it so easy. You just go out and make $40,000 in, and you don't have any. I've got all these employees, and if you have employees, you have employee headache. That's clearly the difference. But I think it's certainly easier to sell a staffing business when you've got an income stream that's may vary, but within a small range. So yeah, I think the advice you give makes a lot of sense.
I appreciate that, Max. Thank you. No, I think it has very much worked out really well for my clients. And we see some that are, both models, they stick to it and it works great. And that's a great business. But I love the idea of combining them. And I'm seeing a lot of places where we're financing permanent placement companies with that new sector. And all of a sudden they start doing it a little while and they go to their clients and their clients are just thrilled because they have that other, that option. They already have, a relationship that they trust. They know that these people that they can recruit. And then of course they may not need or have the ability to go full time right now, especially in the cycles that we're in right now, where it seems that the tech companies are trying to create. Well, they're creating their stock price inflation by just saying to the market that they're getting rid of everybody. Of course, at the same time, they're saying that they're firing people, and they're putting on temporary staff to do the work. So it's for our industry and the staffing, it can be a good model. Very, very interesting. I appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, when you give advice to entrepreneurs and they say, I want to grow. What do you help them focus on that says, are you prepared for growth? I mean, what are the things that you would say to an entrepreneur that says, I need to grow, I want to grow, I think I have a good plan to grow, but what are the steps they should take to make sure they're truly prepared for it?
I think they have to know that they can deliver what they're selling, what they're telling people they're going to be selling. So, that's a challenge. You say you can go out and place 40 people at this company and you better have a pretty good idea how you're going to do that and how long it's going to take. So, I think having a big goal, working hard towards it, but at the same time, having integrity is really an important part of that.
Yeah, I love that. I agree. I talk about this a lot. There's a couple of things that come out in the theme of my content, and I live by it. But there's two things. You mentioned a little bit about having some excitability and interesting, being interesting people. But I like to boil that down to there's a likability factor. As an entrepreneur, you really have to have a likability that people want to be around you. I love that, and integrity. And when you put those two things together, and then add some real ambition, you can really fuel some very interesting things. What about growth excites you?
Well, I mean, anytime you're growing, that's exciting. Your bottom line looks better and it's fun. You come up with a marketing idea and you see it work and you're checking your numbers. That's always great.
Yeah. Max, it's funny. I try to tell young people when I mentor them that, it just seems like over the course of the last 20 years, young people specifically have grown up in an environment where they get that little bit of dopamine rush by, playing video games or something else. As they even get into college, so many people have this concept of the gaming, right? And I mean, gaming, it's bigger than one of the biggest parts of the entertainment industry, bigger than the movie industry, right? And it's funny, I try to talk to young people and I try to say, listen, running your own business and being an entrepreneur can give you the more dopamine rush and more enjoyment and excitement. Oh, by the way, it can also, create a little bit of wealth for you. And I try to get them excited about that. And it's funny. I can tell that's how you and I are. I think we wake up every day and our game, is our business. That's our investing in our businesses. That's why we call this the growth game, by the way. We enjoy it every day.
On a personal level, sometimes it's 9 o'clock at night and done watching TV, and and I'm really, really tired. And I said, well, I better check the email first and make sure I've got everything set for tomorrow. And all of a sudden, I have this energy that I didn't have when I'm watching TV. I'm almost falling asleep, and I come here and I'm in front of the computer, and it's like, you get charged up. It's exciting.
So true. No, I agree. What about growth scares you, or should maybe even say this in a different way? What about growth should scare people? But why? What should that scare them to do? What action should that scare them to do?
Well, I mean, in terms of being concerned, the outlook, the economic outlook, and more importantly, the world outlook is really scary. You have to block that out. But if you look at, I would imagine that staffing industry was like this as well. 2021 was a banner year. It was our best year in 25 years. Last year was a challenge. I mean, if you were involved in any part of the early stage tech world, whether it's VCs or angels or just early startups, it was tough. It's tough to raise money. Now it's still. I see it getting a little bit better, but I don't hear anyone saying 2024 is going to be a great year. It's going to be about 75% as good as 2021. I don't hear that.
Yeah.
So that's something you have to be concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely. And really being able to prepare for that, but yet not allow it to scare them into inaction, right, Max? That's something I try to talk about to entrepreneurs, is that there's never a wrong time to start a business. You just may have to adapt your plan.
Right. Exactly.
That's what I tell people. And I find that there's always opportunity. There's always opportunity to make it happen. So what would you find if you look at if you were talking to a group of 100 staffing CEOs and they asked you, Max, with your years of experience, tell us what is the Achilles heel? Like what can just, destroy our businesses? And I'm a CEO and I'm asking you, Max, I'm in the staffing business. What's my biggest weak spot? How would you quantify that?
Well, not having been in the staffing business, I don't really know. I mean, I think you've got to be really strong in sales. You got to be selling all the time. It's like, you talk to consultants, and consultants have 2 or 3 great gigs going. They say, I know I should be marketing. I know I should be reaching out, but I'm not. And then all of a sudden their deals dry up and they don't have, somebody else to consult for and work for. And I think that's true in perm placement. I think it's true in staffing. You have to have a plan, a steady stream of sales. And if things are going great, you can't take your foot off the pedal. It's got to be pedal to the metal and keep going hard and strong all the time. Obviously you have to adapt. I mean, COVID made us adapt a whole hell of a lot, but for us with our pitch events, it was a blessing because we were now getting companies from all over the country and really offshore as well, where before when we were doing them live and in person in the Bay Area, it was just Bay Area companies. Maybe somebody would come down from Seattle or come up from LA, but so it really broadened. And, and also with, when COVID hit, I talked to CEOs and, are you okay with someone working virtually? And they'd say, no. And then some of them would say, we were about a year into it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's okay. Let's try that. So that gives us the opportunity to do a national search. I mean, in the staffing business, when everybody working virtually, I would assume that helps them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And definitely the attention to technology is the big thing that we're talking about. The businesses, obviously, as you know, will continue to evolve and be disrupted. And I try to tell clients that you better be on disrupting your own business, because if you're not disrupting your own industry, somebody else will. and so, right. Yeah. And so, definitely I try to talk to my clients all the time about make sure they've got a tech focused strategy, because there's so much evolution going on in the recruiting world. It's AI is definitely going to impact the recruiting cycle, and you better be with it, right? You better have a plan, and so that's something I continue to try to focus on. And I agree with what you said. Pushing the sales and marketing at all times is absolutely key. And I always tell people it's either grow or die. I mean, a business is either growing or it's going away. And so if they're not growing even in the difficult times, then there's something wrong, right? So that focus, I think, really helps people. If you look back over your career, successful career, and I'm sure because every successful person I talk to has had some failures, including myself, and I love talking to people about the things that didn't work because it shapes how you make successes, right? But if there was one thing you could redo in your business career, in your business life, what would it be?
I would have paid more attention to the numbers early on. Really, really know your numbers, stay on top of them. If things aren't working, get some advice, get some counsel from people that are wiser than you. To me, that's it. Pay attention to your numbers. Really, really know.
Excellent advice. I was watching a show last night that we all have seen. I think probably the Shark Tank, and I still enjoy it just because even if there's parts of it that are made up, I still enjoy it because you see that passion. I really appreciate how that show has really taught the masses of America that the numbers are so important. I really appreciate that, and that's something that entrepreneurs just have to focus on. They have to know the numbers, and if you don't eat, breathe, sleep, and know those numbers, you're not going to be able to make either good strategy or good tactical decisions. And so I appreciate that, focusing on the numbers and really knowing them. That's great advice.
Yeah, and
absolutely great advice.
Thank you. Our pitch events that we run weekly, Pitch Force, which is pitch-force.com, if anybody wants to look at a recording, people refer to them as a kinder Shark Tank. So it's not all the theatrics and not all craziness, and it's a 4-minute PowerPoint, 4 minutes of Q&A, and then our 6 investors give their feedback. This is what I liked about your pitch, what I didn't like, and they're tough. They're direct, they're honest, and the entrepreneurs really, really appreciate that. There's, no joke. We've got, 6 investors every week, and we've got a stable of about 60 to 70 people to choose from. And if somebody's not, doesn't have their head in the right place, they never hear from us again. So,
right. Very interesting. And do those investors then make a decision to invest directly themselves, or is it really just a preparatory lesson?
Almost all of them are parts of angel groups. So whether here in the Bay Area, it's the Band of Angels or the Kretzy Forum or Sand Hill Angels or the local chapter of the Harvard Angels, they're going to their group and saying, "Hey, I just heard this company. I'd like to bring it to you guys and gals and get your opinion and see if people want to invest." So it starts them on the journey.
Yeah, that's great. Super interesting. What a fantastic model. And you said that's pitch for your website is what again?
Pitch-force.com. So
excellent. Yeah, absolutely. We should definitely plug that. And, I'd love to, I think that's a great thing you're doing for startup entrepreneurs. So I would love to support that in any way I can. In regards to your work with Pitchforce, maybe you could kind of explain to us, like, let's say you are able to put something together. Maybe you make an investment yourself, or one of your close associates makes an investment, and now you're looking for an A player CEO to combine with with an idea, with a business, right? So now you're taking an operator, you're taking a professional CEO and plugging them into an entrepreneur's journey, which is a very interesting and different kind of relationship than just being the entrepreneur, the idea person, and being your own CEO, right? So and I'm sure there's advantages and disadvantages to both. So maybe we could start with that. What's the advantage and disadvantage to hiring, if you can find them, a professional CEO, as opposed to being the entrepreneur and trying to take your company to the next step?
When I got started in this business, I got requests from founders saying, "I want a real professional CEO, someone who's taken a business where we're doing $1 million a year to $400 million a year. And they didn't really mean it. They didn't want to give up their baby. It's like you present somebody and say, well, I don't like Joe's shirt, or I don't like the way she dressed. I mean, it's stupid stuff, right? Now we're seeing just the opposite. So we just made a placement for a company in the life science space where this professor of bioengineering is smart enough to know that he's really good at what he does, but he's never taken a business and startup business and built it. So he comes to us and says, find us somebody who has had success in the startup business and who understands the space that we're in and is hungry, is willing to work for way less than market today, but they're going to be rewarded with some great equity. That's the kind of positions we're filling, and finding, that needle in the haystack. That one person says, this is great. And not only do I know I can run this, but I know where I can get some more money for the company because they need to raise funds. When we present candidates to our clients, we never, ever submit any candidates that don't have startup experience. Because if you haven't worked at a startup, you don't know what it's like. You're working 60, 70 hours, doing anything and everything. And I worked the last 20 years at Intel, but the past 2 years I've been in this small little entrepreneurial division. It's not the same.
It's still different. Yeah, the corporate environment just is totally different than the startup environment. I appreciate that. So if you looked at successful entrepreneurs and successful CEOs, what would you consider as their top 2 or 3 attributes? If you said, if you do an interview or you meet somebody and you go, boy, here are the attributes that I've seen. If I pattern match success, what would you find those top 2 or 3 things to be?
Absolutely have to be passionate, have to be able to motivate your team, treat your people right, and be coachable. Know that you go out and you raise a lot of money and you got this great idea. Guess what? You didn't do enough homework. You don't have the product market fit. And now what are you going to do? You're not going to quit. You're going to pivot, and you're going to have to pivot again. So coachability, intelligence, decision making. I mean, if you're working with a recruiter and the recruiter's putting all this time in and getting you 3 candidates to choose from, you've got to be good at picking the right person and being thorough. And, we tell people in our clients, hire slow and fire fast. Take your time, make the right decision. Don't settle for a B player when there are A players out there.
Ooh, I love that. That's a great quote. Don't settle for a B player when there's an A player out there. And I love that other quote. That's fantastic. Hire, say it one more time. Hire slow, fire fast.
Fast. The hire slow makes sense. Well, fire fast isn't that? Am I being too harsh? No. I mean, if you have somebody that isn't performing, talk to them about the lack of performance. Ask them when they can improve in these areas and by what time. Don't tell them I need this done by 2 weeks from Friday. Ask them when they can have it done. And then if it isn't done, they're not performing, let them go, because they're not contributing. They know they're not contributing. They could be somewhere else where they will contribute, and you've cut your losses because that person isn't going to change. It's sort of like, when you hire somebody, if you think about dating and you meet somebody for the first time and then you're in a relationship for a month or 2 and everything is great, and there are 2 or 3 things that bug you that you're going to try and get them to change. That ain't happening, so make sure make sure with that hire slow that you're really taking your time and you're getting opinions from other people on your team, and that's that's going to help you, obviously, doing the reference checking, etc. But really take your time in hiring. You make a wrong decision, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
I love that, and I think that's excellent advice. I really appreciate it. I would say probably one of my core traits that I find has made me successful is actually something that my father made me do along these lines. I was a very young entrepreneur. I actually started out working in the family business when I was actually going to high school. He made me the CFO of the company while I was in high school. It was a 100-person company, and I ended up having 3 full charge degreed accountants working for me while I was going to high school, if you can imagine that. But it was very interesting, Max. One of the things that my father taught me to do, and even as painful as it was, and I was literally still in high school, he said, you need to pick somebody from the staff and you need to terminate them. And I said, what? And he said, one of the most valuable things you will ever learn in your entrepreneurial career is that it's better for you and it's better for the employee to end a relationship that doesn't work. And, he said it, and I've seen it invariably over the course of many, many years in different businesses I've financed, that sometimes we get stuck with trying to make something work, and it isn't fair to the business, it isn't fair to the manager, and it isn't fair to the employee. And so I very much appreciate that hire slow, be methodical, make sure they're the right person. But if it's not right, don't spend many, many months and even years trying to make it right. You're just going to hold the business back, and it's not fair for either party. So I think that's great advice.
Can you imagine being one of those 100 employees at your dad's business and some high school kid fired you?
Yeah. It was pretty punky.
But
he was making a point, and he was making a point that that when somebody isn't working and it's just dragging the business down, it's not okay. Say, certainly that idea of being able to make sure that you can terminate, somebody it's a skill that entrepreneurs must hone, because it's not easy. It's never easy. I still, to this day, hate it. I still hate letting somebody go, because I'm very passionate about helping people and mentoring people, right? And so, but when you really look at it from both sides of the equation, both sides of that relationship, sometimes to end a relationship is the right thing for everybody, and you feel more free.
Yeah.
So anyway, this has been a great talk. I really appreciate the excellent advice, and really appreciate your years of experience. I look forward to having a relationship going forward with you, Max. I think this will be something super interesting. We can collaborate. I love entrepreneurs. You love entrepreneurs. You've got some really interesting things going, and I'd love to continue to stay connected with you and see where this goes. But thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us today.
Paul, thank you. I've done a number of podcasts. This has been the most fun, and I love your positive and where you're coming from, what you're doing.
Thank you, Max. I really appreciate it. Best successes to your businesses, and we'll continue to connect going forward. So this has been another episode of The Growth Game by Paul DeLuca. I'm CEO of Meritus Capital. We really appreciated our guest, Max Shapiro, today, and appreciate talking about his many investments and in his many businesses. Pitch-force.com, super interesting environment to be able to have companies come in and pitch their businesses in a virtual environment. And we appreciate what you're doing in the staffing business with PeopleConnect staffing as well, Max. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Paul. Bye-bye.